Mike, you have a great wisdom here, is that yes, 90% of people are very confused and do not like your style and will never be a customer, will never be a useful contact. And you're polarizing and you get them angry and you're like insulting their basis of existence. But the other 10% are like clinging to you. Are you the guy with the SpongeBob character on his shirt with all the crazy puzzles? Are you that guy I saw? And I'm like, I am he. They're like, ooh, I am. There's like,
welcome to the Mikey G podcast experience. What up, folks? Mike, I have been doing that since day one. It's been the same time. I usually don't warn people that I'm going to do that obnoxious what up, folks. But Mike, welcome to the Mikey G podcast. How you doing, brother?
I am doing phenomenal, minus the truth of some minor technical issues. Real life, everyone. In real life, we should just be ourselves. Audio issues, confess your sins immediately. Otherwise, you hide it, and then people find out a week later.
Confess your sins immediately. I like that. We'll get to that in the future part of the episode. But before we get there, we like to do just a quick formal introduction of Mike. We had already talked about, we actually met through an agentic, let's call this a talent agent for podcasters. His name is Bordy. But his real life. So was a coding teacher, also a STEM toy inventor, which was one of the things that was really fascinating to me. And then in addition, done a public speaking about Judaism. And I think, like you said, either were you a rabbi at one point, or you are, or you're not. I don't know. What did you say about that one?
Yeah, a great question. There are probably 100 people who at one time or another called me Rabbi Merker. And I always joke, there's like people who call me Rabbi in quotes with question marks.
Right.
And then there's also probably 1,000 people who are like, bad Michael, like not proper Jewish.
Right.
Judaism is not to be turned into, a strange QR codes and shape. And don't ever come into the synagogue with your MacBook Pro and your little search engines and color coding. We aren't doing that.
Yeah.
And I haven't confessed publicly in a few episodes here and there, a different context of there were many times where I did shout in public in front of a group of 30 or 40 rabbinical scholars, serious people. And I'm like, you guys all suck. You're doing the religion wrong. Everyone F yourself. And there were phone calls made. There was brought in therapists and
oh man.
And we should not be mixing Jack Daniels with ancient Hebrew texts. We should not on a Wednesday morning. Nisht.
No. This is one of the more entertaining formal intros I've had on the podcast, which makes me want to immediately get to the world famous Mikey G podcast question, Mike, I knew this was going to be a fantastic conversation. Mike, how did you get to your seat that you're sitting in today? And we want to get there by going chapter 1, 2, and 3. I'm not sure if the drunken shouting is in chapter 2 or 3, but we'll definitely have to touch base on that again. But chapter 1, here's what I'm really interested in, man, is your childhood. Prompting questions here for the audience who has not listened to this before. It is, were you a tinker? Did you play sports? Do you have a vivid memory of something? Parents, parental figures, or some rabbis maybe had some mantras that you actually still live by, whether you liked them or didn't like them. That's where we're going to start. Give me one sentence. We'll talk forever. Chapter 2 is your schooling professional career. All of the things that we just talked about. Remember here, though, I am very interested in the failures the painful things and the insights that came from that, because we're trying to make the world a better place through these conversations. That's ultimately what we're here to do. And then chapter 3 is about this beautiful STEM toy company that you've built. And I think it's fascinating. And I cannot wait to hear your story because I know it's interesting. So let's start in the childhood, wherever you want, my man. Hit me with a sentence or two and we'll go from there.
When I was 3 years old, growing up in an enormous, beautiful home in a nice, affluent Jewish area in Toronto, Canada, there was a room in the basement, a huge room that had, I vividly remember at 3 years old, 3 computers and 3 printers, and my mom was installing computer systems at the time. And this goes way back to like 1988.
Wow.
And that was when I first had a love affair with technology. Back then, I was a little boy, and man, did I spend hours on those machines, different machines. Yeah.
What was it about the machine? Like, you were looking back, obviously, like you're not having this realization then. Was it that exploration? Was it just the unknown? What was it? What was so fascinating to you?
There was one game. There weren't many games. There was only one game on, like, at the time, and in the game, Donald Duck's Playground, you had to work collecting fruit. I'll never forget it. Watermelons, and you had to, like, catch the fruit, put the fruit in a bin, sort different toys. You had jobs: toy sorting, railroad, fruit collecting, luggage handling. And then only after you work do you get like $1 comes to your bank account and like a few nickels. And then with the money, you go into the store, and Mickey Mouse is like, this is like a game, first Disney game ever, or whatever. And like, you buy the things so that then you can go to the playground and play. That was the game. It was deep. It was nothing like today. Nothing. That game was just so, you had to work hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. There was no mouse. There was no color on the screen. Computers, there was no internet. You were working hard as a young man.
Yeah. And ironically enough, right? Like, you were playing a video game, but you were actually learning a ton. It seems like you were learning about business, right?
Not only was I learning about business, but you had to, there was no mouse. Even the computer screen, you're talking here like in the mid to late 80s, computers were different. There was no mouse. There was no user interface.
Yeah.
There was nothing. So I had to learn, like, I mean, now looking back, I understand, oh, wow, my mom was teaching me Unix commands. That's and crazy. Like Lotus 1, 2, 3. But again, I would have been in nursery.
Right.
Not even kindergarten. And I think the happiest, I'll never forget my mom saying, if you put like 24 in this box for hours per day, and you put like you put different numbers in different boxes, like pre-Google Sheets, before Excel, Lotus 1, 2, 3, and my face would light up. It's like, how many seconds are there in a year?
Yeah.
How many seconds are there in 10 years? And, I'm like, I've never seen like a 2-dimensional calculator before.
Right.
And that just stays, that I think that's today when people ask, what am I doing and why am I doing it? That always come back to, man, those early hours, 4 hours straight, learning how to like call up a game on a computer and play chess on a computer. And I mean, it's so nerdy. People have said you're the nerdiest.
Magical, right? It's a magical experience.
Yes, I remember that. The other memories I have. So, and again, people know me are like, it's so nerdy, man. But like, I remember going to Florida every year for like 2 weeks, flying from Toronto, Canada to like Fort Lauderdale, Florida,
Yeah.
and having always having an area in my grandparents' house where there was just a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle or
Ooh.
a Rubik's cube. And it was always like, I was like a wild goat of a child,
Right.
crazy ADHD, crazy like autistic, crazy. And it was like anyone came near the puzzle, I would kill. I would like, in my puzzle, me. And
Not mess with the puzzle.
and whenever I was angry or something, they're like, okay, Michael, we have the puzzle. Remember, the puzzle is to calm you down so you don't punch anyone else. So those fond memories. And also I remember very much tidbits from childhood. I remember so much getting thrown out of class every other day. Out. I was so disruptive. I'm like, even while I'm talking to you now, I am like under the table.
Yeah, fidgeting,
like all the traits of, I have like, you Google search like autism or autistic savant, that's me. And I couldn't even hide it. And I just grew up as this, like, I was literally like, when I saw the movie Rain Man, someone's like, you should see the movie Rain Man. And I'm like, oh, hot water burns, baby.
right?
I'm like, that's me. They're like, oh, you're like Tom Cruise. No, I'm the other guy. I'm the other guy. They're like, oh, you can count blackjack cards. I'm like, yes, but don't,
Yeah.
So I guess I grew up as this, like, people were always like smartest guy in the world, but also the craziest.
Yeah.
And I also remember around that, I remember going from like Jewish religious school to public school.
Oh, that
So
had to be a big change.
And I also remember, that was a huge change. I also remember different times in my life taking off my yarmulke, my kippah, in front of my father or in front of rabbis, and like throwing it on the ground and saying that this religion sucks and that it's boring, spitting on it. And I've even shared publicly with others. They're like, oh, you're so into the religion. I'm like, oh man, if you met me at like 15 or something, or 22. So I've had I guess, personal bouts with, I guess, the traditional model of education. I had so many deep bouts with it, like screaming at like grade 3 teachers, ripping holy texts. Things that I only now at 42, married with 5 kids, and sitting in my basement, I could be like, oh wow, a lot was going on. Mike, like talking to one's younger self and being like, why did you like beat the crap out of that guy at summer camp when he said that you're disabled? And I'm like, I remember vividly, like, if you called me a certain name or said why, and I'm like obviously way out to lunch, and I'm like the weirdest things ever. But if anyone said anything, oh man, there would be like, I just remember like socking a person in the face.
Wow.
And
so you have a really interesting point though, of what would you say to that younger person if you could have that conversation? Because you're like, what's interesting to me is we're talking about some heavier stuff, right? But you have this just ever since I've met you, you've had this sense of optimism and humor. And has that become a part of you? Has that always been a part of you? And I'm assuming, back in our age, right? So I'm only a couple years older than you acting out like that at that age, probably they didn't really even know what really was going on with you, right? And so, like, what would you say to that young person or someone that might listen to this that has a son or a daughter that is doing the same thing? Or, maybe there's a young person that does listen to this. What would you say?
Yeah, so I would say that different people have different strengths and different weaknesses.
Yeah.
And some people need quiet, and they're like myself, like, and there's a time where I need time to unwind, step away from reality, step away from a tense situation. And I actually, it's very important for someone who has a short fuse, or like myself, or someone who is triggered easily, or has certain, let's say, area triggers or areas of complexity in their personality. We have to be, the sooner we come to grips with this is who we are. Everyone has unique gifts and every strengths and weaknesses, and we have to, we should never take it personally. I tell this myself all the time. I have to remember that if someone is criticizing me or challenging me, there could be a lot of other stuff going on. It's not about me 100%.
Right.
And so I advocate always, take a step back, walk away, don't push anyone, don't yell at anyone, and also don't judge. We don't know where everyone's coming from. So that's my mantra of today is that, it takes time. People are like onions. And there's a lot of layers.
Yeah.
So
Layers.
we have to, if someone is pushing your own buttons or you're pushing theirs, there's so many variables at play. And sometimes in life we just gotta come to terms with who we are. For example, like, people always know me. They're like, oh, that guy's really good at math. Oh, he's like a tech genius and he's years of wisdom and this. But at the same time, writing, reading, terrible. I have to read everything. Someone's like, how many times did you listen to the recording of the meeting? I'm like, okay, after listening to the recording 3 times, I think I understood where I misspoke. He goes, misspoke? We almost got, there's a lawsuit. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I can we resolve this amicably? I didn't know, or like, didn't know. I've had people full on just like, like scold me. And I'm like, what is this about again? They're like, did you read the email from 2 weeks ago? I'm like, what? They're like, remember what you wrote? And I'm like, just hold on a second. And then I'm like, take a mouse. I'm like on the computer, I'm reading, and I'm like, signed Mike Merker. And I'm like, see.
You bring up something really interesting, though, which is the self-awareness, which I think people are well, you said 2 things. What I heard you say is self-awareness is what you were really getting at, but then 2, it takes a really, really long time, right? I took 30 plus years to even start having the true conversation that I had to have, and it's very difficult. And I think in a day and age where we are constantly force-fed so much information all at once, doing the long game and being self-aware are really, really difficult. Do you have any thoughts around that concept?
Totally. Totally. When I was younger, I thought, oh, I'm the only one whose parents got divorced, or I'm the only one who is secretly terrible ADHD and reading comprehension, so slow in
Right.
English, and will never get be higher than a 60, higher than a C in English. And I'm the only one who secretly is like proud of his gifts and depressed of his weaknesses. And then as we get a bit older, as I got a bit older, I'm like, oh, wait a second. You were also, you're also had the same problems. Why didn't we talk about it? And he goes, and then my friend's like, well, we were teenagers, man. The whole point is we each had our own internal monologue and phobias and fears. And so of course we never told each other about all our family issues or sibling issues or Jewish belief issues. But the reality is, behind the curtain, inside a person's heart, and there's all sorts of craziness going on. It's just, when you're younger, you don't have a language with which to express it. And like today I think about, also today it's June 2026. In 1994, when I was 10 years old, the world was different. Your grandmothers, Jewish grandmothers, hit you if you lied. And thank God. I always say thank God, or
about that.
It's good. Now, today, this is wrong or this is not cool. But looking back, how many times I've heard parents say today, they're like, oh, man, if I could just, even teachers, oh, man, if I just could take not just once, take like a ruler and just smack the kid over the head, that would solve so many issues. And I'm like, well, don't not with a ruler. You could yell a little bit, but it's interesting how different the same problems or challenges today were resolved differently. Like I actually extremely thankful. I tell everyone, you, John, if you were only hit more if you were only spanked more, you would be a better accountant and a better programmer and a better everything. And he's like, oh man, I wish my grandmother was alive to spank me. I'm like, well, I don't know if that's the right term, but so I guess also I was thinking about it the other day, tangentially, that when I was younger, it was like, this is your bedtime. You go to bed at this time. And then for many years, my dad had this philosophy. On Friday night, of course, there can't be a bedtime. I grew up with during the week, during a weekday, school, Sunday, you got to go to sleep because, we have school tomorrow. But there was this crazy idea that you can't have a bedtime on the weekend because that defeats the whole purpose. So I remember vividly, the goal was to stay up as late as possible every Friday and Saturday night. And I would. I'm like, I got to 11 p.m. And then my mother had to carry me up to sleep. And I'm like 8 years old.
Interesting idea. So do you think were there benefits or negatives in your mind due to your experience, right? Was it interesting to you because you had a set of rules during one time, but then you had a little leniency? Or what are your concepts around how that affected you?
I think the fact that my mom, my dad, my grandparents, there was a lot of this theory of, okay, there needs to be some rules, but like candy, every child needs unlimited access to all snacks, candies, chocolates, and chips at all times. And then they should have to learn on their own internal mechanisms of control. And so I thought every home was like that. And then as I got older, I go to a friend's house and I'm like, hey, where's the cupboard with all the chocolates and chips? He goes, there's what magical cupboard are you Michael, what magical cupboard speakest thou? And I'm like, what? Where you don't open a cabinet and there's all sorts of pops and chips and
Yeah.
chocolates and tchotchkes. And he's like, no, no, he's like, no, my mom is like, if we behave, then we're, one bag of chips might appear secretly, of which I might have thereby. And he's like talking like Shakespearean almost language. I might thereby earn the right to have like 8 Miss Vicky chips. And I'm like, yesterday I ate a whole bag of sour cream and onion.
And it was
What's wrong
awesome.
with you?
This is a great conversation, though. So what I'm getting is you enjoyed that, and now reflecting back with it, almost agree to have that autonomy to make your own rules. Yes, no, or is there a take on that you would have? Because you're a father now.
Yeah. Anytime I've, despite the odd yelling and getting frustrated, I'm 100% big on like, the best way to learn is real life. You have to actually adult-like call your own shots, make your bed and sleep in it is so interesting, as opposed to parents being like, this is to be done this way. I guess I was reading, someone called it online, unparenting, which is you let things happen. Okay, you don't want someone like bleeding from the neck, God forbid, but like let things go, let things happen. So, for example, my daughter's 4, and she's like, "Daddy, I want makeup." So 100 other people I know would say, "No, you turned 4. You're not ready for makeup." Me, we drive to the makeup store, and there's videos on YouTube, by the way, and she's just smearing lipsticks and eyeshadows, and we're there for 2 hours, and my wife's calling where we are supposed to mail the packages, and this person's emailing me, blah, 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 and I'm like, no, she wants makeup, we're gonna get the makeup, all of it. And even to the point that like 3 people working at this like large makeup place are like, why don't we just give her a facial and do a full of lipstick and this, and I think that was the happiest day of her life, because a week later it's like more makeup. And when I grew up, and I'm realizing most people don't experience this. Oh man, I had like everything. I had computers before anyone had computers. I had access to, I had like the coolest stuff. And I guess I grew up with a lot of excess. And someone's like, you went to overnight camp for 10 years? I'm like, yes, I went to, yes, I did. And they're like, doesn't that cost like thousands of dollars? I'm like, yeah, I guess I grew up pretty lucky. And so I guess I was spoiled. My grandparents always were like, oh, we really spoiled you. And then at like 30 years old, I'm like, what? They're like, don't you see how lazy you are? You haven't,
Well, that's actually what the point I was going to bring up is, that's amazing that 1, you appreciate it, but then 2, when it comes to your thoughts there on the benefits and the negatives of being spoiled. Again, you're not thinking about it in the crowd, but like looking back, it seems like a lot of people that go through that I know of maybe come out on not the greatest side, because they expect these things. But it seems like you have a pretty level-headed thought process about the advantages you have. What is that? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, great question. So I've just actually been learning this last couple years. In the last couple of years, meeting so many different people, and me kind of, so to speak, coming out of the basement, coming out of the lab, coming out of the place where I sit in front of the computers and do my coding and inventing, and talking to different people and being vocal and asking the questions and doing podcasting. And then also starting to realize, like, some people actually have real challenges, adult challenges, youth challenges, growing up challenges, poverty. Like, not, I only had 11 popsicles today. I'm
Right.
talking like we don't have drinking water
Right.
because we're
Right.
coming from this other continent,
Yeah.
or of course the teachers beat us because that was punching kids is normal in South Korea, or I've
Right.
heard all sorts of different things. Or of course my father's furious because I'm 99% religious and not 100%, and I have
Right.
these deviations, and I'm like, whoa, I have it really good. I've complained in public. Oh man, my wife wants to buy this, and I don't want to buy it. And the guy's like, "That's your problem." And the guy's like, "That's your chocolate." A rabbi's like, "That's chocolate cake. That's not a problem. I got a guy who's in prison 20 years, and I have to go visit him again." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." And another person, I was complaining. There's this thing called the mikvah, where like men or whatever. It's kind of like a Jewish ritual bath. So like all the men there, whatever, they dunk, they shower there. So going there is like where all the funny conversations happen in
Uh-huh.
the mikvah, whatever. So like I was complaining with my brother-in-law about something, and another guy's like, I'm visiting the prison every Thursday as a chaplain, as a rabbi. And you're complaining that like your back hurts because your new chair in your basement, the lumbar support of the $300 chair is slightly less than the $400 chair you didn't buy. This guy murdered 3 people. And
Right.
I have to like teach him how to do the afternoon prayer
Yeah.
at his meeting as he's apologizing to his victims. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I won't talk about and I'm like, oh, my back, the devil is upon us.
Yeah.
And a guy's like, I'm 2 months behind on my mortgage. And
Oh.
I'm like, oopsie doopsie.
Yeah.
I've learned from many past mistakes. We sometimes have to know what room we're walking into
Yeah.
before we wiggle our lips
Yes.
in nonsense,
Yeah.
or also teaching. I always joke that like, oh, I've been fired or thrown out or dismissed or thrown away from 12, 15 times. I don't even know how many. I lost count of like jobs, contracts, startups, projects, co-inventing something. And then when I write, and then I'm like sitting down, maybe with a therapist or talking to a friend or writing things down. I'm like, what happened this time? And I realized that the errors I've made in my life with awareness, I can say that there's people who like, they're really just trying to survive, or
Yeah.
it doesn't come easy to them, or no one, their life's a lot harder. So when they say something like, there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of, if I say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, other people may have written it down, remembered it. There could have been an audio recording of a meeting that they may have listened to 5 times thinking Mike Merker will do this, or Mike Merker said this. And me, I may have said it in a haphazard way or didn't take it as seriously. And then I forget sometimes, like, like there's people where they were born in Iran and then they moved to Canada. They didn't move to Canada. I'm born in Canada. They didn't move to Canada or the US. They fled.
Yeah.
They fled. And a lot of people, I guess only now am I like, whoa, whoa, like that kid that I kicked at school, his father was a janitor because when he moved from Hong Kong, he couldn't get a job as an architect. So
Yeah.
he was a janitor. And the reason that he lived, when I visited his rundown apartment, and he was like, oh, Michael, you're so lucky you get like toys and a room to yourself. And I'm like, room to myself? What are you talking about? He goes, I share like one room with my 2 brothers.
Yeah.
And I sleep in the bunk bed. I don't even have it. I'm lucky if I can use the desk. And I was like, oh. And then I guess looking back, I'm like, whoa, kids are growing up and like, you know,
Yeah.
they go to whatever school the parents can get you to. And
Right.
parents are like the people who come to Canada or the US as immigrants, they are coming as immigrants. Like, so Mike Merker does not really understand what it means to not, you know, sing for his supper or take
Right.
the worst job, the only job you could find, cleaning toilets. I don't
Yeah.
even know if I've ever, someone asked me once, they're like, have you ever done that? I'm like, no, I've had a cleaning lady. I don't know.
Right.
Cleaning up after myself is even unknown.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
wife, like, why is the basement such a mess? I'm like, well, when's the cleaning lady coming? She's like, we don't have a cleaning lady. I'm like, I thought you were the cleaning lady.
Oh my God.
So Mike Merker is a bit infantile in some areas. He hasn't grown up in each, you know, there's areas of life where you have to at some point, you know, work a corporate job for 10 years that you may not like, or you do this course and it's hard and you have to do it, but you need the certificate. Or so my life's always been, I guess my life's been a little bit smooth sailing, and I guess I've had it easier. Had it
But wait, but you still have this perspective, and did that just become later on in life, though, because you're admitting that, but there is an aura about you that does not seem stuck up. You seem approachable. You seem joyful, and why is that? I think is what I'm getting at.
So in the midst of in my life, there was about 7 years where I was just traveling and living. You know what couch surfing is?
Oh yeah,
So I was couch surfing for off and on for about 7 years of my life before I got married. You know, there was a lot of just traveling in Europe, in Korea, South Korea, and in America. There was a lot of time spent not working, not spending very much money at all, kind of a little bit freeloading, to confess, but also kind of just exploring. And yeah, and I realize now, well, that was also quite luxurious on the travel side, but there was times I lived like however other people lived in Switzerland or Germany or Chicago. I kind of copied their life and learned about them. And there was some harsh moments of like sleeping on a messy floor, or I've slept on like picnic benches in like Amsterdam when I couldn't find a place I was staying at, or on a park bench in Athens, Greece. I guess there was a lot of travel mixed with some suffering, some minor suffering, if you
yeah.
will. Self-imposed, actually, strangely. No one said I had to travel for like 6 months. No one said a year away from home. Like that, looking back, that was kind of, it wasn't dangerous, but it was kind of crazy to go and like, and then also different, seeing broadly, seeing the world through many different eyes, you know, like actually being a foreigner, like
Yeah.
actually being in South Korea and like in a room where they're in a city where there's only people of a certain culture, or you know, things like that. Or and
I'm
I
hearing
yeah,
perspective. I'm hearing a lot of perspective. Is it as simple as that?
my father used to say that, oh, you're going through one of your, I'm a traveling, you know, linguist or social scientist experience.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, there's like a rabbi calling my father, being like, is Michael coming back to the yeshiva? He has disappeared again. And my dad's like calling my brother, and my brother's like messaging on Facebook, are you still in Chicago at that collective? where you're smoking weed all day and eating tacos at night and occasionally color coding different languages. I'm like, there's no evidence. And my brother, and people are like, no, no, we know exactly where you are. And I'm like, oy vey. And they're like, so the Rabbi Braun in New York at the yeshiva, he has inquired if you'll be back for the next semester. Which started a week ago, and I'm like, oh, oopsie dipsy. Hashish is a hell of a drug. For the Jewish world.
So, we're starting to get into chapter 2. Take me through that a little bit more. I mean, fascinating. Thank you for just sharing all this stuff and being so transparent. It means a lot to me. When you start thinking about evolving out from high school and starting to do some of the things that you're talking about, what excited you when we get into chapter 2? What was the mindset of Mike back in the late teens, early 20s, and what was exciting to you, and what were you super interested into, and why?
I had a few experiences working in investment banking as like a very low level filing clerk and kind of do all the crappy work, basic computer stuff, basic clerical stuff. I had different part-time experiences working for my mom, working for at different parts of like a, kind of like an investment bank part-time job. In doing that, I was like, ooh, this is not really Mike Mercury. This is not me. I need something like fun and creative. And it's so hard for me to like wake up, once a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays to work for like 5 hours or 2 hours to like go into the bank or investment bank and like wear the fancy collared shirt and fancy pants that are uncomfortable and kind of sit there from this time to this time and do banking related work. I guess that wasn't gelling so well, but at the same time I told everyone in my life I want to be an engineer and I was going to be a chemical engineer. I enrolled in chemical engineering at University of Toronto. And then there was so much hard work to get in and studying math and, high school marks to get in. And then after the first couple months, I just woke up one day and I'm just like, okay, I don't really like the banking thing. I don't really, I don't see myself in that world, even though much of my family is involved in finance or whatever. And I really don't want to I don't want to wear the lab coat and mix the chemicals and go through all this stuff. I need to do something with I like math, but I need to do something creative.
Yeah.
And I remember crying extensively. I don't know. I'm like 19, I'm like 18 years old or something. And I like go to the office, the head of the engineering office. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. And she's like, is everything okay? Is your family okay? And are you all right? I'm like bawling my eyes out and yelling and like a nervous breakdown. And the woman's like, well, you're enrolled in engineering. You don't want to be an engineer? And I'm like, no. And she's like, well, but you can switch out if we can, if like I walked in with like eyes bawling, pulling my hair out, like complete movie level madness. And the woman this is like an innocent woman who's like running the admissions department or something. And she's like, okay, well, let's talk. Come in, sit here, have a coffee, have an iced tea. Is everything okay? And I'm like, I want to be an engineer. I can't take it. I can't have 8 hours a day of math and science and chemical mixing. And I don't like wearing the lab coat. And she's like, okay, you don't have to wear the lab coat all day. That's not, you don't have to wear the lab coat all day. And I'm like, I don't ever want to put on the lab coat again. And I think it was a breakdown. And then I did also go home. I think the woman called my mom at some point, and I went home and I had to explain to my mom that this is not me. I can't do this anymore. I'll do something else. And she's like, but no, this is a good job. If you become a chemical engineer, even today, it's, oh,
Yeah.
I could have been a chemical engineer.
Uh-huh.
Which is, and I get it, and I get it now. Looking back, I understand where people are coming from with it's not just it's in other cultures too, but there is a very strong Jewish narrative of, we need you to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or an engineer. We need that. But that's a lot of that's coming from fears and past struggles, and I see it in a little in different ways. Also, you have like a Chinese family or a Korean family where the parents are very strong on, we need to get you a degree. You need a piece of paper that says you're a lawyer, that says, like, we need to get you a profession. And then around the profession, you'll have an hour here to do your 3D printing or your computer. You'll have 20 minutes here to take apart laptops for fun. You're not to be a musician or a painter or a toy inventor or a clown. And so, yeah, I have like a clown costume, and I've done presentations dressed as a clown, and I have funky toys filling my basement. And I guess I had a midlife crisis at like 18, and then I guess there was also running away. There's like strange vacillations of, maybe I need to be an engineer, because if I'm an engineer, my grandmother will love me and my grandfather will love me, and I'll look this way, and my mom will tell people I'm an engineer, and I'll just suck it up. But I guess the mask came off at some point. I'm like, I learn about foreign languages, and I need to travel, and I need to like explode across the earth, and that's what Mike Merker is, and everything needs to be Mike Merkered, and as opposed to, let's just get this piece of paper, and then the rest of my life I'll be a engineer.
So what is your twofold, why do you think that you chose that route? And then two, there's lots of people struggling with this right now, for sure, especially with the advent of AI and how technology and schooling is like, do we have to rework schooling? So one, what was your catalyst for making the jump? And then two, what is your advice to that 18, 19, 20-year-old that's struggling with these same problems?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think what has happened in the past is people who grew up very poor, or people from cultures like the Jewish people and the reflections of the Holocaust. And that if you Google search Holocaust Museum, you'll find 300 Holocaust museums scattered around Canada, America, Israel, Europe, even. And there's this like Holocaust, and there's this the Jews have been tortured, or this is going on in the world. And I think it bubbles up into this. There's the fear of like, well, how will you eat? And like, look how much we've been through as a people, and oh my God. And so there's a lot of, and I mean, there are people who are Jewish and not Jewish who work as toy inventors, who work as musicians, who work as artists. Do they drive paradoxically, do they drive the German cars made by Nazis anyway?
Yeah.
That's the humor. That's the mystery. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you better be a Jewish doctor or lawyer so that one day you can
Drive the German
because of
car.
the Holocaust, so
Yeah.
that one day you could buy a German car.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a second. So I mean, that itself is a paradox. But I think when I people ask me all the time, "Hi, I'm 10 years younger than you. I never filed a patent before. I don't know any patent attorneys. What's that like?" And I always tell people that, like, okay, Mike Merker's very different than the average guy. For me, doing an engineering degree for 5 years and following all those steps, that would be torture. Whereas doing 100 trade shows or presentations or podcast interviews, that doesn't scare me at all because I'm different than that. So
Yeah.
that's the advice I often give to people, is that whatever you do, there is good and bad. So if you want, or your parents are pushing you to be a lawyer and you want to be a lawyer, there's nothing wrong with being a lawyer. I would never say that a lawyer is lesser than a creative
Right.
thinker. Not at all. And yes, like, does a lawyer have a more steady work path? I mean, well, there's a need for human lawyers, and there will always be a need for, there's always a need for lawyers, whatever. But I guess what I've realized is that I tell people that, like, well, if you're going to start your own project or your own business, you do have to do, that's entrepreneurship. So you do have, someone has to do the sales, someone has to do the marketing, and that's you. Someone has to do the product development, and that's you. If you work in a corporate job, a bank, a law firm, a big company as an engineer, lawyer, doctor, engineer, whatever, then it's more structured. So yes, you lose, the good and bad. So yes, is your job guaranteed? Well, yeah, if you're a doctor, you'll probably, well, everyone gets sick and needs a doctor, so you'll have a job. Will the job pay? Yeah, if you go to medical school and you study all this stuff, in the end, you'll come out, you'll have a nice Jewish job, and then it will generally look good to those.
Right.
If you're a guy or girl and you're looking for a guy or girl, it will look the part, and your mother will be happy and their Jewish mother will be happy. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you go the untrodden path, the path not taken, the other path, which is you're going to go against the grain, you have to accept that, whether you're Jewish or Chinese or, Catholic, you're going against the grain. So yeah, you have to accept that burden mentally, that it's going to be a different route. It's the route. It's the Robert Frost. It's the road less. It's the road not taken. So if you go upstream and you go against the grain, then your whole life you have to accept that people will talk. So you have to accept that, and you have to accept that you do have to carve out your own path. So, if you have a cozy government job or a cozy banking job, okay, 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, whatever, you will have a cozy job, and then you can, around the job, you can have your hobbies. If you want to turn your hobbies into a job and make it into a job, there's going to be, are you built for that? You have to make that happen. And also, you're going to attract different people into your life.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit of a wonky, are you Willy Wonka? Are you going to, and your mother's never going to, you will never appease the people in your life who demand conformity.
Yeah.
So
true or false?
It's a discussion, I guess.
True or false? To not conform, to take the path less traveled, you can be successful without passion.
Yes, this is actually a really juicy topic, and I think about all the times. I thought about it. I was thinking about it last night. I was thinking about, oh wow, everyone who's ever come up to me and been like, do you respect do you like the toy I invented? Or do you think I'm a good entrepreneur? Or Mike, do you think that I'm doing a good job as a rabbi? Or Mike, do you think this? I didn't realize that because me, I'm so far afield and I'm just so out of the box that, all sorts of people come to me and they bring their issues. Now they're not able to go online in a podcast and say these are things that are wrong with my job or my company or my employees or my employers. You can't do that you can't just say whatever you want. But me, because I'm like have a clown suit and because I have these crazy puzzles and because I have thousands of videos online of me singing in Farsi and singing the Thai national anthem, like I've just broken all the barriers. So when I appear on the scene, it's like, ooh, he's the guy. It's like, this happens all the time. It's like, ooh, that's Merker. And sometimes people run up to me. They're like, Merker, I want to talk to you. I have ideas for how we can like change the Jewish religion, right? And so I'm like, I guess I've become like this fool, if you will. This fool. That's what my few people are like. You're like the fool from the medieval era who's just like he's gonna say the craziest stuff and picking fights with like leaders, religious leaders, and business leaders. And even a woman, when I was in like a really good like technology accelerator program, and like I'm fighting with like a world, Uri Levine, who's like a co-founder of Waze, and he's a published author, and he came to speak for a few days, and people are like, Mike, the head of the program's like, Mike, shut up, don't bother him. And I'm like, thank you for reprimanding me again. And I'm like, fights with him. I'm like, in your book, you don't talk enough about STEM toys. And he's like, Michael, I'm 61 years old. I'm Israeli. I'm giving general guidance about business. I'm like, you do not understand anything about this area of gaming. And he's like getting angry. And he's like, I flew in here to give this master class, and you're kind of getting under my skin. And there are videos of me like, and this is a theme in my life, and I've toned it down a bit, but I'm always like rebelling against everyone. And like people after the course, a year later, people are like, oh, I remember you. Instructors are like, you're that guy who shouted at me. You're that guy. This is like a head of a university program. It's so funny. It's like, I remember you. You were the guy who threatened me because one of the programs was on Saturday. And you said, and no one ever talks back to me, ever. They know I'm the head of this entire university division. No one ever shouts at me. And you said, as a-hole, you put the program on the Sabbath. You think the Jewish people haven't been through enough. And so I learned that. And then someone after was like, his name is Chris. He's not Jewish. He doesn't know what you're talking about. And you're threatening him, but he's the one who paid for the lunch that you're eating. Like, don't you get it? And then a venture capitalist comes in. And it's like, hi, so-and-so. Yeah, I manage this fund. And I'm like, you're a terrible Jew. I saw that video of you where that woman asked you questions and you wouldn't answer her. And he's like, wait a second. These are like serious dudes. And the guy's like, wait a second, Michael, I get like 1,000 pitch decks. I have, there's like 1,000 for every 1,000 inner meetings I have to do each year, 4 a day sometimes. I can't invest in every company. I'm like, asshole, terrible, leading people. No. And he goes, I'm an adventure capitalist, man. I can't, you don't know it's not my money. I have to place the money effectively. And I was like, oh, really? He goes, yeah, Michael, it's a hard job, man. You don't know. He's like crying. He's like, you don't know what it's like. And I'm like, oh, And then
I'm so
the person
sorry.
comes up and goes, that's like a leading venture capitalist. And you were threatening to strangle him
Yeah.
over things that like
So it seems like your answer is false. You need a little passion to be the Michael that you are. But to your point, you you've learned to balance over time. And how could you describe that learning experience, right? Because you seem like you get very passionate and excited about things, but what do you now think about when you're in those situations where you do want to shout, knowing the guy isn't even Jewish, and I probably shouldn't be shouting at him for not being Jewish and having something on Saturday? What do you think about now? How do you work that out? Because the passion, I don't think, will ever leave you.
the best advice, which I've got many times, is, Michael, you need to have like a trinket in your hand, some silly object that if you're really worked up or someone said something and you misinterpreted it, if there's a room of like 50 people, we can't, having these like outbursts, although it's funny, although, in the end, like, the venture capitalist is like, I remember you threatened me over the non-kosher pasta. And I'm like, so although it's fun, I've learned to say that, like, me personally, there's like, it's important to have decorum in
Yeah.
an exciting podcast. Telling stories is great, but like, if there's like a luncheon, if there's like a proper lunch, you have to come on time. You're not supposed to come in a clown suit with makeup on, telling that, with like, promoting anti-Semitism in like a Jewish venue. Like that's like crazy. And the person's like, "Aren't you a rabbi?" And it's like, "What are you?" So the sort of the acting and the clown costume and the props. I've learned that we have to be respectful. So, for example, there
Mm.
are like, there are these, a trade show, and I'm the guy who's always like, let's fill up the booth with all sorts of tchotchkes and crazy props and everything. And then people who like run the trade show are like, okay, you're one of like 100 exhibitors. 99 other people had proper marketing material. They were not, even if they have a toy company or toy inventive project or educational product, they do not dance and sing and bring like custom electronic lights into the booth. No, it's like they're meeting people, handing out business cards, and I'm like bringing like light up custom electronics, and so I'm creating all this sort of crazy noise and excitement. And the woman next to me is like, "No, we have 10 patents. We're doing medical research. Please, and you have to stay in your booth. You can't
But,
have
but
objects
did it
flying out
did
at
it
me."
work? Did it work?
It does work. Although boundaries are pushed, being weird, a few great teachers have always told me, "Mike, you have a great wisdom here, is that yes, 90% of people will are very confused and do not like your style, and will never be a customer, will never be a useful contact. And you're polarizing, and you get them angry, and you're like insulting their basis of existence. But the other 10% are like clinging to you. Are you the guy with the SpongeBob character on his shirt with all the crazy puzzles? Are you that guy I saw?" And I'm like, "I am he." They're like, "Ooh," there's like grown men coming up and like kissing me, and like children grabbing me. And then, so I've learned that I advocate for, I always tell people that, you be you. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're an inventor, there's an understanding of the need to make a bit of noise and, reduce the advertising because of, doing your own style and having your personal brand. And that's kosher and that's cool. But if your life is the other route where you have, a traditional job or you're working in a large company, you do need to fly. I tell this to everyone. You have to fly a little bit under the radar. Don't bring your dog to work and
Yeah.
spark some, pro dog therapy thing. No, that you don't bring your dog into the bank. And if you're meeting, and if in your funky company or project, if there are serious investor meetings, or there's a journalist who's asking you what you do, we don't want to make a scene for those. If it's a quirky journalist or some crazy venture fund that likes crazy projects, that's different. But there's a time and place for, there's a time and place. So we do have to, we should tone it down a little bit. But if you're a founder, I guess the benefit for the founder or the inventor type is that you have kind of a bit of a license to be a character, and you get to be your authentic self. But you also have to work hard. You can't, and you have to stay consistent. If you don't, if you're a clown, you're a clown. You can't. You can de-clown a little bit, but you can't come in the next week. You can't hope that a year from now you're going to come in with a suit and tie and apologize to everyone when you sprayed them with water guns at the trade show.
Right. Before we get to the evolution of the toy company, give me one or two kind of like deep, meaningful moments through kind of this chapter 2, and you were doing many different things. One thing that is not lost by this amazing conversation already is your creativity and passion for being your true self, which I think, to your point, can have consequences, but is one of the more important things that we're going to have left in this future, right? Not everybody has to be for everyone, but staying to your true self is part of being human. What are 1 to 2 other insights through this amazing journey that you've taken that you'd love to share with people?
Whenever I've really messed up purposefully, really broke a lot of rules,
Yeah.
and it escalated very quickly, or eventually, the head of a huge school or rabbinical organization, or the head of a university, or a person of tremendous power and honor who's older, has always pardoned me. Not like a crime, but like has stood up, gone to bat for me and said, no, he's good. We're on. Yes, that was wrong. Yes, he shouldn't have threw the water balloons at the rabbi's wife. Yes, he shouldn't have, stole those books and color coded them and put them back on the shelf. There were misactions, but a few times it was very much like I'm brought into the office with like the head guy, and it's like, I'm a head's on the chopping block. And each time almost always was pardoned. Was like, okay, you were supposed to, we, you're the only person in history who's ever brought like a completely cannot read the Hebrew alphabet person into like the synagogue where the rabbis study intensely. No one even does that. But the guy that you brought in is now committed to is very interested in the religion. So yes, you had that tavern. We found your tavern of beer and drinks and vodkas and mixed drinks. We found all your secret alcohol. We don't approve of your methods, but we now have learned. And people always are like, we don't know why you did it or what you did exactly, but it worked. And now those people who you taught are interested in the religion. Had you not sworn and got everyone drunk, during that then that wouldn't have happened. So maybe we need to bring more alcohol. So you broke some barriers, but those barriers needed to be broken. Another tiny tidbit was, a few times people came up to me and they're like, "Are you trying to make the religion fun?" And I'm like, "Of course. That's the problem. That's what's wrong with you." And these are like head rabbis. This is like old school. And he's like, but but it's not. Is it supposed to be fun? And I'm like, well, if it's not fun, no one's gonna do it. Don't you get it? And so, that is extremely controversial in religious education of religious children, or in the running of a synagogue, or even crazier. That's not how you give a rabbinical lecture to a group of women. You do not tell sex jokes from ancient texts. So Mike Merker's like, I'm going to break all the rules.
Yeah, and so this is interesting in the sense that you're breaking the rules but still making an impact is one of the main things that you're saying. What? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, for example, a person who is to be like a rabbi or a teacher or a rabbi teacher or even coding teacher, there are things that there are things you're not supposed to do. Like, you're not supposed to talk about problems in your own life extensively. If you're teaching someone and then the person's like, I feel really depressed, you're usually supposed to work your way back to, well, we're here to study and this is a holy place and, you should be the religion, la, la, la. But I'm like, nah, let's talk about it. And so many times it's like, you're not supposed to do that. Not kosher. Don't do that. Focus on the books. Focus on teaching. That's your job. Do that. And I would always say, I'm a free agent. You're lucky to even have me here. And they're like, I don't know if we're lucky to have you here. So I was always, I've gotten in trouble a lot of times. Or there have been times where I'm lecturing in a synagogue and there's someone to come and sit in the room to make sure that everything I say is, kosher enough, or I don't deviate into talking about sex jokes or crazy unrelated topics or weird tangents. And then so I didn't intentionally stir the pot, but to keep people who are not interested in the religion, to make them interested and to get them excited, I found I would cherry pick the stories and teachings that were the most weird or exotic. And there's a lot of them. If it's books, Jewish compendiums of books with 5,000 pages, there's going to be some crazy stuff in there. So my job, I would say it's my job to be the crazy guy in the corner who says all the crazy stuff. And a few people are like, you can't, you can't, you can't open that book at that page. That's verboten. That's forbidden. I'm like, forbidden? That's the curriculum. That's what what we're working with. Yeah. And
it always seems to be coming back to this self-awareness of being unapologetically you, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. Knowing that my little man is going to wake up sooner than later, I want to transition and still do yourself a service of being able to talk about the toy company that you built, because part of the reason we're here is I focus on creators and entrepreneurs like yourself. Although, as you see, we spend a lot of time on you and your thought process, which has been a beautiful journey. And this is hopefully the first of many. Take me through why toys and why music, and what was the moment of you had this aha moment and you said, this is what I want to spend my time on.
One of the happiest, one of the coolest moments in my life was when I started learning about uh, different types of cryptography, or in fancy words, changing the way information looks.
Yeah.
And I'm literally, I mean, it's a little bit dark in my basement, but I came across all these different type of exciting. I was always amazed by like the Rubik's Cube and games like puzzle things like Tetris, and all these new 3D printing technology. And I've worked for so many years teaching kids coding, courses online about coding. And I guess at some point I just had this feeling, why isn't the totality of the Jewish religion, which is a very hard language to learn, and you got all these funky symbols you have to learn each symbol, to even pronounce the letters, never mind even read the language. You got to learn all these crazy symbols. And I was like, why can't we just have a funky QR code for like Jewish songs and prayers? And I guess I spent an insane amount of time trying to explore, like, why can't there be like funky artistic QR codes that scan with the phone, but are also like people can learn how to interpret it. And so what I'm holding in my hand, it's really quirky. This is actually Never Gonna Give You Up, a Rickroll, as like an encoded puzzle. And then this it's so funky, but this is sort of where it's at today. I was just like, why can't, London Bridge is falling down, that nursery rhyme I've heard so many times. I have 5 kids under 10, and I'm like, why can't there be a calculated way to encode it? And this would also solve so many crazy puzzle problems in a Mike Merker kind of way. And so literally in my whole basement is like filled with these funky charts, and designing these like funky puzzles of different shapes and sizes. And I guess that's who I am today, the culmination of all these good and bad experiences, and growing up as some rich Jewish kid with lots of extra tech help from my parents, and so much time of it traveling around like a homeless couch surfer. It's sort of and also seeing the struggles, the fact that 95% of Jewish people cannot even write their own name in the Hebrew alphabet. I'm like, doesn't anyone know this? And people are like, we know it. Don't remind us. We're very sore about it. I'm like, well, Mike Merker, if no one's going to do it, if no one's going to push the boundaries and create this universal language for encoding data, who's going to do it? And, if not, and then I guess that's everyone who knows me. Everyone who knows me is like, good and bad, the same verse. He's the crazy guy we need to be having human recognizable QR codes, and he's unpredictable. He's a loose cannon.
Yeah. So was there a moment, was it a movie moment where you were like, aha, I've got it? Or was this a slow burn over time when you decided to really start building these?
Great question. So a little bit of both. There were a couple movie moments when it's like, there were a few times, there were a few close calls where my wife's worked in special education, or even more so in working with blind students or students with severe autism, and she has a lot of patience for alternative learning and respects what I'm doing. There were some close calls where it's like, no, this can't go on anymore. Like, if there are any blocks in the basement, I'm going to vacuum them up. And she's like, oh, I'm going to buy an industrial vacuum and I'm going to get all your blocks. And And there were other times where it's like, oh, I'm going to call the rabbi tomorrow and I'm going to tell him that you were out at night till 3 a.m, 3D printing again. Or we're caught I saw the video. I'm like, nothing happened. I was at the synagogue. She's like, you were not at the synagogue. You were at a trade show wearing a clown costume, and there are videos of you viral online of singing songs in Vietnamese. And I'm like, okay, she's like, you told me you would, when before we got married, you told me you would be a mensch, a good guy. And I'm like, just a little more Vietnamese singing.
Okay, so this is beautiful. So what's the name of the company? If you were to kind of the elevator pitch, the 1 minute max, what is it called and what are you trying to do?
Everything's called Song Puzzle. And what it is we literally take song lyrics from songs in any language or culture or time period, and we can calculate the exact unique 1 in a gazillion unique code, and it's funky. And what is a song puzzle? A song puzzle is it's a QR code, so a phone can scan it. That's what's in development. But over time, a child can actually recognize it. When you sit for long enough, me personally, I invented it, whatever. But like me personally, you can throw me in a room of like 1,000 weird, colorful blocks like this, and I could tell you that's a German traditional song in German. And this is Psalm 23 in ancient Hebrew. The Lord is my shepherd. And this is the 37 books that make up the Jewish canon of the Talmud. And this is, I can read it. This is Eye of the Tiger from the Rocky movie.
And so is this mainly then, because obviously you've been around it, but there are people's brains that just work better visually. So is it an alternative form of learning is what you really sell it as, or?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, when people are like, okay, I heard your spiel, I saw the puzzles. What are we really doing here? Yes. At the end of the day, it's language learning through pop culture. And it's also, and even more particularly, it's coding. It's coding, learning about computer coding, but not the easy stuff that is taught through traditional toys or through all the platforms out there. We're teaching like the hard stuff, like encoding of data. So where words have to become letters and the letters have to become numbers because the computer doesn't know how to process. Computers doesn't know what language is. So the words have to become letters and the letters have to become numbers and the numbers have to become colors because people like colors. And this is one of the props. And
That's amazing. And so how does this, so what are you currently working on? And we'll start winding it down. I've got, so basically, we'll ask a little more questions around this. I have one question I ask every guest, and then I'll do my closing thoughts and we'll call it a day. But the last kind of follow up here is, what are you currently working on today? Like, do you have paying customers? Are you not there yet? Do you have a market that would be willing to pay for something like this? I'm interested about the business aspect of it.
Totally. Yes. So the hardest part at the moment is the computer research and the patents. That has been the hardest part because it took me 20 different variations and write-ups and drawings and systems to get to the point where it's like, this is the 7x7 grid that I will always use. These are the 7 colors that I will always use. And this is the, I have many layers to it, but like this is the encoding, like Morse code. This is the chart that I will use where these sounds, whether they're ABC letters or Hebrew alphabet or Russian alphabet or Japan or Korean alphabet, whatever the alphabets of the world, these are the way that the human sounds are going to be mapped to color number pairs. That took a long, long time to figure out, and it's taken even longer time to fulfill the research, to do the research and development. So I've been learning, and a lot of people ask the question, at the moment, there isn't a single sale, but at the same time, there are like companies, like the company Pixbricks that invented like a sideways kind of Lego microchip block.
Right.
So I guess my funkiness and inventiveness, I've been getting it. I get directly in the room with sometimes like the best inventor who's hard to find, or the investor people. There's so much there's so much weirdness and curiosity that I guess I get by on the quirkiness of the number of languages I'm trying to work with. Someone's like, how many languages would this be compatible with? And I'm like, all. They're like, all? I'm like, well, we're focusing on all speech sounds being encoded. So there is no language or alphabet that could fall outside. And then a person's like, that is the craziest answer I have ever heard in my entire life. And then I'm like, and then the guys, these are like real stories. So like just the other week, it was like a mother. There's like a professor of capital and venture capital and funding, a professor at a business school, and
Right.
him and his mom are like interrogating me and asking a million questions. I'm like, I apologize. It's hard to explain. We're not selling anything at the moment. I mean, yeah, you could go on songpuzzle.ca and buy a kit for $25, but like at the moment, there's a much larger technology being developed. And they're like, how does it work? I want to know how it works. And I'm like, okay, I have like this 60-page document. Would you like to look at it? They're like, oh, there's multiple patents. And so and then they're like, prove it works. And I'm like, and then I start singing like classical Soviet era Russian songs. And then the mother's face is like, and then she starts talking to me in Russian. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I don't speak fluent Russian at all. I don't even know the alphabet, but I have the encoding of the popular 10 Soviet army songs that you sang when you were a little girl in, 1946 in Stalinist Russia. So that's what people like. That a long story short is people from the far out there cultures, like someone who's Latvian is like, can you sing in Latvian? And I'm like, sure. And then I push a button on my computer, pick Latvian, and there are song encodings, and I can Latvian.
Isn't that fascinating because not only are you helping to teach, but you just made one of the most interesting comments that I wouldn't even have thought of is you had somebody light up because you had a childhood song from their native language and it meant something to them. That's really interesting.
Doc, there's been other things where a person's like, Mike, there's no way you can sing that song. That's in like Thai. And I'm like, yes, I've never been to Thailand. I don't even know how the Thai alphabet works. I know it's like a wild alphabet. And he's like, it's really hard to read the alphabet. I'm like, yeah, but the encoding of the songs as unique, colorful shapes. Yeah, I've seen them a few times. And I love that poem that became a pop song from 2 years ago. And, it's kind of like people are like, there's no way that you're up to date on like Vietnamese and Thai pop singers. I'm like, actually, I really like her new album. And they're like, holy crap. And then I have like a funky chart, and I'm like, I love the chorus of the Britney Spears, so to speak, of of
Yeah.
Thailand. And then a Thai person's like screaming in Thai. And I'm like, I don't so it's like I mean, it's a little bit cheating because it's encoding and the computer is doing the hard heavy lifting. But it is cool when like my mom comes over, guns blaring. Oh, you're still not a chemical engineer. And then I pull out a chart, and I'm like, Mom, can't we sing? Which song would you like today? Do you want ABBA, the Dancing Queen, encoded? Do you want some Russian song, some French song, some German song? She's like, you can't have all the songs encoded universally as a 2,600 piece puzzle. And I'm like, that's what I'm doing. That's my thing.
That's so cool. And so where do you think, kind of looking to the future, let's say next 3 to 6 months, where do you think you're going to be concentrating most of your time on, and what excites you the most about the future?
Oh, that's an incredible question. So the all this dialogue here and the Mike Merker you're seeing today is so much different from, shamefully, when I watched like a YouTube video from a year ago of me doing a live video for 40 minutes. So, or me being interviewed by my nephew. So all this stuff you're seeing and hearing now, it's starting to become coherent as I'm learning that it's okay for me, as I'm comfortable now, and I'm not afraid to say, hey, I'm an autistic savant and I can take language and universally color code it and explore foreign cultures. So that's now becoming stabilized. And I guess what's really been happening recently is all sorts of other people who are themselves super creative or exploring technology and language learning and how to teach coding to kids and how AI tools should deal with language. People are talking to me and I'm talking to them. And literally, in the podcast I have, it's a mix of like my niece who wants to talk about her favorite toys, to this Vietnamese filmmaker who's telling stories about culture, to a new software program that a former prosecutor and NASCAR executive is now focusing on building. So I guess what's happening is I'm getting much more out. I always tell people that it's always good when your face is down and working on technology or inventing. Then you pick your face up and you go and you talk to the other guys out there, the other ladies out there who have also been in their inventive caves, and bounce ideas off them. And I guess also I've learned that it's important to no one's it's not so easy to steal like a super complicated language technology. If you have an app and it's certain generic features, okay, you don't need everyone to sign an NDA and whatever. But if your technology is so out there to the point that like it's so insane, then you don't have to worry about people coming after and stealing.
Right. And I think that was my final question to kind of lay up to that until I ask my last final question is that thing right there, AI, right? How do you see, because I can easily see a world in less than 5 years that I just have an earpiece and it doesn't matter that you're speaking a foreign language because it's translating in real time. Does that worry you and think you're going to make your company irrelevant, or does that help you and you become additive to this opening up of world communication? What are your thoughts?
There's definitely a whole world. Let's call it. I was originally calling it Judaism for absolute beginners.
Right.
That whole world is so interesting because there just aren't like tools where the guy who's like 20 years old or 40 years old for his first time walks into like classical studies in university or a extremely complicated theological book or text that's been around for thousands of years. And the same for Judaism, the same for other classical works in Greek philosophy, which is in Greek. And I guess I don't view AI as a competing technology with universal language puzzle, like squaring or packaging. They're sort of kind of different. I view AI as like AI is different than human enjoyment of learning.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
And I
I'm
agree with you on that.
I guess I'm in the space of here's like a really hard language or some really foreign stuff, and it becomes capturable. Like
Yeah.
it's no longer, I mean, you can listen to a song. Anyone can go on YouTube and be like, give me songs from India right now that are popular, or give me 100 classical songs from like Beethoven, operas, and Mozart. So you can listen to it and you can enjoy it, but can you measure it in a universal format? That's, I guess that's sort of where I sort of am headed, where someone's like, there's no way you got like Bach's cantata number 56. And I'm like, oh, I think I did that 2 weeks ago. Am I worried about AI? Not at all. Am
Mhm.
I worried about, am I going against the grain so much that I will always have critics? I guess the critics like me more than the people who like me. I'm just
Yeah.
starting. That's my deep revelation recently. That
Yeah.
when someone really hates you or is really angry with you, they're imbuing so much energy and they're talking so much. Like there are whole meetings where people have got together and they're like, okay, we got to fire him or he can't come here. And then there are other people where they're like, don't you find it interesting, rabbis, how much you're actually talking about some guy sitting in his basement with Lego and you
Yeah.
feel threatened by his existence?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's what's happening is every time there's a trade show or every time there's a booth and I'm just so me doing what I'm used to doing, it's people can't stop talking about it. And I think the people who like are the most vocal, like, don't ever talk to me again, or I hate you, or I really hate you. They come like a month later and they're like, wait a second. What? What was that you said? And I'm like, I told you I can sing your song in your country and in your language better than you, in a way that your own mother would be jealous that I'm more Vietnamese than you. And then
Yeah.
a guy's like, but that's not possible. And I'm like, well, it wasn't possible until I sat down for 2,000 hours and actually came up with a way to do that. And he's like,
Yeah.
but you shouted at me in public and you were drunk. And I'm like, okay, yes, I there may or may not have been some alcoholic beverages. But if we strip away the alcoholic beverages and the clown costume and the me accidentally stepping on your childhood memories from Vietnam, maybe we are, why can't we get along? And I've had people who have like hated me and then come back and now we're like the best friends. And they're like, ooh,
Mhm.
what's the nearest software update? Please, can I come over and you show me? I'm like, of course you'd come over. I only was joking when I called your mother such and such a drunken horse. That wasn't the right, if you insult someone, I'm going on a tangent here, but like if you insult someone or their family in their native language that no one speaks. That's like it's not really an insult. It's like, whoa, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know the local swear words in Korean? And I'm like, and they're like, and then I've learned also that in other cultures and countries, curse words are not like punctuation. No, they like they're like declarations of war. So
Yeah.
I've learned sometimes that if you're going to sing a German song, make sure you know in advance that that's the song that Hitler chose as the national anthem, and so singing that is actually the Nazi anthem. So I've actually got a strike on YouTube. This was like a few months back, where YouTube's like, we are giving you a strike for singing fascist and anti-Semitic songs. And that very morning, I gave a lecture on Judaism to like 30 people. And then I come home and it's like anti-Semitic strike, Nazi ideology. And then I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to sing. And then I'm like, well, I can't be a rabbi in the morning and a Nazi in the evening. That's never been done before.
That's wild. All right, man. So I hear the little man wrestling around. This has been phenomenal. I always ask a question from every guest that comes on at the end. Same question or a form thereof, a question, and then I'll do my closing comments. We'll call it a day. The question is, you have now been through the Mikey G podcast experience. You're a podcaster yourself. You've been on other podcasters. If someone were to ask you what it was like to be on this podcast, what would you say?
I love your unique style, and I like every podcast or every host of a podcast, host/producer, has their own unique style from the first time you speak to them to the filming of the session to the when the when the phone or computer has a Wi-Fi issue, or when there's a platform issue or crash. And it's so interesting when I've been on like this group roundtable that was recorded, it had its own culture and style. When I've been on with a French Canadian journalist and she, we had a 30-minute chat and she wanted to polish it up. Or when I was on, everyone has their own unique style. And I think, Mikey G, what you have is what you're allowing is sort of you're digging so beautifully into the unusual nooks and crannies. And your question style is not it goes deep. You have a format in which you're exploring even let's go back 40 years ago and let's focus on let's call it the early childhood psychology element. I never even thought about that, ever asking anyone about that ever. Like, let's go back to and yet it's also loose, so people have to dig. I've never digged into those topics so much, and that's extremely unique and powerful for storytelling, and also you're extremely for the other person. You're not dominating the conversation. Even you're just you're just nudging a tiny bit. You haven't inserted your own responsa, your own thesis against mine. It's as if you are just opening the Mike Merker questions. And that's a beautiful style in a world of art. Your painting is different than all the others. And what a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, goosebumps every time. Like, that's exactly what I'm going for. I think we do all ourselves a disservice by not, how many times have you heard how to be successful? You deeply listen. And then it's just some toss away comment, right? And that's, I think, for sure, I truly do understand how to deeply listen. And when you really then break it down, I think it's hard for some people. I think the thing that's helped me out the most is I've been able to deeply listen into you, and you made this comment too, which I think is probably the biggest benefit that
Mm.
one of the benefits you get that I agree with that I get is I've now been able to deeply listen to stories for hours on end on people all over the world. And our brains are really good at you will say something random and it will just spark a thought in my head that came from another podcast that I probably couldn't even name, but it's been laying dormant in my head. And that's all I'm doing is just bringing that up. So like you just gave me, to kind of recap what we had, you are an infectious human being. There's no doubt in my mind. Whether you said, yeah, there might be some people that don't like your infectious style, but I think nonetheless, I love your energy. I can tell that you've got an incredibly creative brain. And then you also, on top of it, were just extremely humble. And the fact that you shared the things that you did on this podcast, that's not easy for a lot of people too. And I really, really appreciate that. And that's not lost on me, man. You seem just like a very kind human being and soul as well, too. And I can tell you're insanely creative as well. I admire the fact that you spent thousands of hours trying to put a system together because most people won't do that. And your comment about in the beginning about you committing, and we were talking, I don't even think we were recording, we might have been offline, about you saying in public, hey, I'm going to do a podcast. Now I'm going to do 100 of them. I'm wedded to that. You're following through on that, and that's extremely admirable too. You said a lot of things that also did come and bring full self. There was a couple topics that came up and seemed that I think are really important that came up time and time again. One, knowing yourself, right? The self-awareness theme came up multiple times. And two, just being that unapologetically you. Obviously you've learned over time to maybe massage some of those. But I think the coolest thing that you've done from telling me your story is sharing how you came to these realizations of it's okay to be yourself, man. And I think you gave a lot of people that will listen to this that might not be cut the normal way. And I really do think with AI and everything the Mikes and the Mikeys of the world are what the world need more than ever. Because a lot of we're actually going to be forced on this conversation. I'd love to continue to talk to you about how can we make more content around this, which is as robots and AI pick up all of the mundane, which humans have been trained to do over the last 100 years, and it's consumed their life of mundane. We're going to have nothing left but to explore and be human and understand how to be creative. And there's a really important conversation there to be have. And you helped have that conversation today. So I deeply, deeply appreciate that, man. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it can the to be continued. And I just reflecting on the ideas there. There's so much. What did I read the other day, or I've heard many times? It's like in science and in cognitive science and brain science, there's so much where it's like we only have scratched like 2% of the scope of the human brain, and all these new tools and technology are we're starting to like humanity as a whole and technology, we're starting to like solve problems we can never even imagine. We didn't even know we had a problem. Like within the most diverse things. Like, wait, I keep hearing, Elon Musk saying within his own unique way, saying like, why aren't we, why are we only on one planet? Or someone saying, why is all this money spent on museums of Holocaust and remembering the suffering of the Jewish people? It's so interesting. And then it's like, why don't we spend the money on educating people about the religion instead of
Right.
focusing only on these 2 or 3 most negative, worst moments in the last 500 years.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm coming back to is like, it's like exotic times where people like us are now uplifted
Yeah.
as like creative
Yeah.
wild Mikeys.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting that if I look back all those years ago and you in your own life and your own stories, and now it's like people want to hear about us.
Exactly.
People really
Yeah.
like us.
Yeah.
Even the haters who are gonna hate are like, oh, what's Mike Merker gonna do? Like, oh, Mike Merker's at the conference. Ooh, I hate him so much. But I gotta, people who hate me are like hovering around my booth for hours. I'm like, you told me you hate me. He goes,
Yeah.
hate comes from a place of wonderment and
Oh, for
unresolved.
sure.
You can't
Yeah.
hate someone without wondering,
Some
like,
type of
who is this?
intrigue, right? Yeah, like you're intrigued by this person. It might be hate, love, whatever. And I think that's the perfect way to run it out, which is, amazing conversation. And I think both of our advices to the audience that does list this is keep on being your unapologetical. Unapologetical. Is that even a word? How do you say that? Be unapologetically
Un-
you.
yeah,
Unapologetically
yeah,
you. But I think we also, through our lives, has also centered on kindness and grace, and all of those things should be included as well. There's a reason why those words are in many of the religions around the world, because it is a very important thing.
yeah. And it's so interesting how just because someone doesn't understand what's the saying? When you don't understand something, hate or chaos or
Mm,
confusion is
yeah.
just an instinctual like fear.
Yes.
And so anyone who's doing something very far out there or so creative or so, of course you're going to be misunderstood like 90% of the
Right.
time. And of
Yeah.
course not everyone wants to hear the new
Yep.
wave of ideas or see the big picture.
Yep.
And that's because that's just a human need to also, there's nothing wrong with a person who's a good lawyer and they're like, I just want to be a good lawyer. I don't need someone to come and attack with
Yeah.
AI my livelihood and sense of honor. And I've been doing this for 30 years. And so, of course, people are afraid of new
Yeah.
and complicated technology.
Yeah.
But sometimes, at the same time, the creative people can't help being creative. So it's always a clash between the one who clings to comfort and repetition and job security and financial and honor, and the crazy clown who is a mad scientist who threatens the established order. So you
And
have
we
Martin
we
Luther King, and you have everyone who's like, let's just keep things the way it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll treat it as stay creative, but also stay classy. And with that being said, Mike and Mike, we enjoyed every moment that you watched and listened to us. We can't thank you enough from the bottom of our hearts. Mikey G and Mike M are out.